First of all, thank you everybody for coming out so early. I know that it was difficult for me to be here even remotely on time, and I didn't stay out as late as you guys did, so really appreciate that. That's why there's all that coffee there. So first of all, to the previous panel, thank you so much. That was great. Great discussion, and we've got more good stuff for you. So with me today, and ordinarily I wasn't going to read all this, but I actually am learning stuff about you guys. So we have the bios here. So to my left, we have VJ Geronimo, CEO for North America for Oris, and our host for last night's party. So again, thank you. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had a great time. Now, I've known VJ for a long time. I consider him a good friend. That doesn't mean I'm going to go easy on him, though. But again, I learned stuff here. So VJ Geronimo, as we noted, the CEO of North America for Oris, and a 27-year veteran of the industry. So what are you, 28, 29? How old are you? All right, that's good. Served as Vice President of Client Development for the LGI Network, don't know what that is, and was the New England Territory Director for Victorinox, Swiss Army. That's cool. He holds a BS in Accounting from Lehigh University. Again, this is very granular. And an MBA from NYU Stern School of Business. So I didn't know you were that smart. I'm going to be nice to you now.
I'm really not.
And then to his left, we have Blake Mallin, another good friend of mine, and co-founder of Worn and Wound, and also the brains behind the Wind Up Fair. That's his baby, and it's actually something I think that's really been wonderful for the industry, kind of a new look there. So I'm not going to go into your whole thing. It's a little shorter. And sitting next to him is Hyla Bauer, and again, someone I've known for a long time and consider a good friend. And the interesting with Hyla is that she kind of straddles both of the worlds that we have up here as a journalist and also somebody who has worked in the industry. So I'm going to go read yours again. I like this one. Hyla Bauer is a freelance writer, editor, and consultant, a current contributor to Watchinista.com. Hyla's watch passion began as the executive fashion editor at Condé Nast Traveler magazine, covering the SIHH and Baselworld news shows. She's also head of PR for Vacheron Constantin North America for 2 years, and is formerly the editor-in-chief of Watch Journal. So this is somebody whose brains we want to pick later on. And then finally, another good friend of mine and someone I've known for a while, Fred Martell. He is the president of North America for Baume Mercier, and they're actually our sponsors for today. So I hope you had a chance to take a look at the watches over there. So the coffee you're drinking is also courtesy of him, so thank you for that. And he's actually had a very interesting career, so I'm going to just go through it right now. A seasoned professional. I didn't write this. With nearly 2 decades in the watch industry, Frederick Martell currently serves as the president of Baume Mercier North America, but he's former director of marketing and communications for IWC North America, and more recently, vice president of sales and marketing for Audemars Piguet. So this guy knows his stuff. So with that said, I'm going to park my buns here. And almost slid off here. And the first question that I have, the Chinese have a saying, may we live in interesting times. And I think it's fair to say that these are interesting times in the watch industry. It doesn't imply good or bad, but we've seen a lot of challenges recently. And my question, and it's a general one for the entire panel, we could just sort of go down, is how do you see the industry, how do you see it's changed in the past, let's say, 5 years?
I think that especially communities like yours, I think, with the advent of social media, not that it's been longer than 5 years, but it certainly changed the way that things are happening. It's changed the way that things are getting introduced to the market. It's changed the way that things are just out there. People see them, people take them in. It's not just reading a magazine anymore or doing something like that. I mean, it's growing, and it's groups like yours here that have really established and come into the market to really kind of forward the collecting and forward the kind of mentality of watches and really bring watches to the forefront again.
Yeah, I think kind of piggybacking on what Vijay said, I think, in our sort of like corner of the watch industry, in the sort of smaller independent micro brand, affordable sort of end of the world, you're seeing just like a really large rise in creativity. There's a lot of brands that are able to take risks because they're much smaller, they're more independent. They can kind of do things that maybe some larger brands can't. And I also think you're seeing across the board just a much stronger connection to the consumer at the consumer. So brands have a better relationship with their consumers through events, through RedBar, through Windup, through various social media channels. It's just the distance between brand and enthusiast is much, much shorter than it used to be.
Well, I think in the last 5 years and even before that, watches have become cool again. I mean, when we started out, most of us were kind of considered nerds, and for me, being in the fashion industry, everybody would like, why are you interested in these things? But now I think we're seeing a whole new generation of people who are interested and appreciate, and watches have become cool again.
Well, and I agree, and I think it's really thanks to the arrival also of internet that democratized like a lot of things, because to get access to a watch before was only through retailers, and you had to push a door sometimes, impressive for some people to get access to watches and talk about that. So I think internet and what like Vijay was mentioning at the beginning, it's like you guys, RedBar, so helped tremendously to open doors, to get the brand the possibility to talk to their own customer, should then they have any own retail store. That was also the way to get access to talk to you directly, and using also this new technology, we could almost like get you guys from a screen into our manufacturer and show the way the products are done and everything. So yes, I guess the way the communication evolved helped the industry to change dramatically its way of like either producing product, but also especially communicating about it.
Okay, great. I'm hearing some positive stuff there, and that's always a nice thing. But in these past 5 years, and perhaps even currently, and this is more for Vijay and Fred, what challenges are we facing now, or are you facing as a brand in terms of reaching your clients, selling, and sort of standing out in what's becoming an increasingly crowded field?
I mean, I think it really comes down to the product that you put out. I think you have to give consumers product that they want. And, as a brand, Oris, we always try to kind of listen to feedback, to put things out that make sense to, and not, quite frankly, not overcharge people for watches, like really just a good watch for the money. And I think when you do things like that, it gets recognized, especially now as the community that has always appreciated a brand like ours. I mean, Oris has been around a long time, but it's always been appreciated by watch people that enjoy watches. Now with all the watch, with everyone that has a voice now, and a much more of a voice through social media and these things, that's what propels forward. But it still comes down to basically giving your consumers, I think, what they want, and it's acting in a fair way. It's doing the right thing, and I think those are things that will always hold true, whether it's this time or another time. It's just you just have to adapt to the way things are going, but just hold the same those tenets and hold true to yourself and who you are.
Some challenges again is about like the awareness, and that the end consumer has today, thanks to this information that they get. It's like, I think you don't fool them around anymore. You can't put crazy prices on product like that, because they are much more knowledgeable and they understand what it is. Another challenge I would say is the fact that, again, I think the internet brought the parallel business, and we saw also a lot of things. So we have much more competition in terms of brand, yes, but also from other channels. So it is a concern for the industry, and to try to continue to legitimate our distribution network, working closer with the independent retailers that will be there and promote and help us to sell our watches. But also, so we used to have journalists telling our stories, And now there is a new community. It's you guys also telling our stories and being opinionated. And yes, that helps us to stay on our toes because, again, the only voice we had was the journalist. And to be honest, I think journalists in the watch industry were not hard on us. They were not really, they were explaining and talking and presenting our watches. And now we have influencers that are really opinionated and that are commenting and talking about products. So, and sometimes I think it's like, I think what is also difficult is the fact that you're on the internet or you're behind your screen, you allow yourself to also tell everything you want, and that's I think also the issue there, because you can't even answer to them, and it's so easy to backlash those brands like that.
So you raise an interesting point there. It's something that maybe I can apply to Hyla and Blake. So obviously the landscape has changed for watch journalism, and the internet has played a big role in that. And Hyla, you have perspective both from the print side as well as the digital side. How do you see this playing out now, and what challenges are you guys facing as you're kind of approaching this industry today?
Well, traditionally, the trade publications would have a whole issue devoted to the new watches from SIHH and the new watches from Basel. But today, I mean, we can, if we want to know what the new Vacheron Constantin is, we just have to look on the internet pretty much as it's being shown. So you have all of this information that everyone can have immediately. So this idea of sort of unveiling is just gone from the magazines, right? So in order to keep the journalism interesting, you need to go beyond just this reporting and go more deeply into, like, how does a tourbillon work, or the latest philanthropic efforts of Audemars Piguet. What is adventuring? Like, really deep into things, rather than sort of say, here's a new Rolex, here's the new Patek Philippe, because everybody knows what the new Rolex is already, you know. So to turn those into more interesting stories where you are incorporating the new watches, but giving an editorial view and an editorial story to them.
I mean, I think when we first started Worn and Wound, and for example, like when we first went to Basel World 7 years ago, 6 years ago, whenever that was, we got a lot of funny looks, and people really didn't understand what a blog was, and we'd ask for review samples, and they'd make sure we were going to give it back to them, and you know, that kind of stuff, and no one really knew what it was, and it kind of took time to build people's trust. Now, you know, it's become so normalized, we don't really face those challenges, and I think blogs have really been embraced, and they're at the forefront of what people are doing, and that's great, and it's all been normalized. But at the same time, there are all these other ways of communicating with people and generating content that you always have to evaluate and determine, is that right for you? Like, are we going to get into video heavier than we were doing before, because now YouTube is huge? Are we going to start a podcast? You know, everybody has podcasts. We've had one for a while. They're a ton of work. We used to do it weekly. Now we do it bi-weekly. You know, it's just, as things have gotten easier for a blog, they've also gotten more challenging, because it's just constantly pushing to new platforms, communicating with with people in new ways, and especially it's like, you know, you have individual YouTubers popping up and creating these huge channels, or you have influencers who, you know, maybe their sole way of communicating with people is a Instagram account, but that's a really powerful tool with a brand. How do we compete with that? So just analyzing the new things people are doing and finding out, you know, which of those avenues are right for us.
So there was something that Fred also touched upon, which is that previously there was a perception that the journalism was a bit too laudatory and not quite as objective as it should be. And I know that there are people today who complain that the biggest problem facing watch journalism is that it's kind of an echo chamber. Are we not hearing criticism? We're not, you know, really digging deep into that. How would you respond to that as a writer?
I'll respond maybe just more as, you know, I less write on the site now, but I am sort of involved in all that aspect of things. I think we've always really tried to provide a very honest, you know, interpretation of the products that we talk about on Worn and Wound, and I think there have definitely been situations where we pretty honest about a brand, and the brand wasn't very happy about it. But at the same time, I think, brands are becoming more used to honest feedback, and so they're more receptive to it. But I think, if you talk about how close brands are to the consumers and how close we are to our readers. If we weren't being honest with our readers, if we weren't providing that candid feedback on a watch, they would let us know when they do. So I don't think it's quite as easy for us to be soft on a watch. We've always been held to a high standard because of the readers and our followers.
And I think when you think about that, we talk about print and you write an article, and years ago you just wrote an article and that was it, and you got some feedback. Now you get instantaneous feedback, comments, this kind of thing, and don't think that people don't read them. Like, we read them because that's where you find a lot of feedback. That's where you find a lot of, how do people perceive this? Is this right? Is it something? And that's, you truly have that voice, and that's the great thing about it. You really have a voice, but it also, honest feedback is what you need. Like, you always need honest feedback, right? And some people, you'll never make people happy. You're not going to make everybody happy all the time, but it's just getting that feedback mechanism in place that was not there before, which has greatly helped, and I think done a lot for our watch community and just the way things are done.
Yeah, social media is definitely a double-edged sword. Do you have any thoughts, Hyla? Or?
I do, because I think that within our community and within the high-end collectors, they really know their stuff, and some people who comment on the blogs, I would say, are sort of armchair watch collectors or fans, but not necessarily people who might be able to really speak to the mechanics in a way that other people might. So I think there's this feeling that, okay, definitely there are a lot of legitimate comments, but there are also, you sort of have to sift through this huge group of people who might not really know as much. And that's my concern, is that sort of everybody now is an authority. And I think while it's amazing that everyone's interested, it needs to be backed up by something that's more substantial. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, a little bit of knowledge can be a dangerous thing.
Right.
And I guess that is part of what social media has done, and the internet is sort of the great equalizer. I don't know how long everybody here has been collecting. I recall when I started getting sort of heavy into this industry, I was actually recovering from heart surgery and a lot of time to be on the computer, and this was back in 2006. And this was sort of I think the heyday of when the forums were a big deal. And people were on Time Zone, people were on Watch You Seek, and that is how people were communicating. There was this explosion of information that was available, and then right after that, we started getting into social media, which then made everything immediate. In some ways, I think Instagram has supplanted the forums as a preferred means of communicating, and then the blogs are sort of where we go for the deeper dive. I don't know why I brought that up, but so for Fred and VJ, in terms of the marketplace now, the world is changing. One market's hot one day, the next it's not. What's the most important market for you guys right now?
Personally, or for Oris as a company, or
you can any way you want.
I think that when we look at markets, and our market, the U.S. market, is a very strong market across the world. The Asian markets are strong too, and it just continues. But I think the thing you have to be careful about as a brand when it comes to that is when you come out with product, you can't come out with product that just comes to one market. I think you need to make sure that you cover one market and the needs of another market. And some brands have come with things that are just very specific to one market, and then when the market turns down, or if that market turns down, all of a sudden things turn. So you have to be, just like with anything, diversification is a good thing when it comes to that sort of thing. So, but these markets, our markets, are very strong. So.
Historically, for us, the biggest market was the United States, and that was basically thanks to our distributor Ben Kaiser, who really introduced the brand to the market and made the brand and built up the brand from scratch. So that made us like the biggest market for the brand. Europe is like really close to this one, and because again historically Baume has been this luxury affordable watch, the watch that you are getting as the gift or as your first serious watch for a graduation, for any celebration in life. And so that was like what I think Europe could afford. And then obviously Asia, we're developing ourselves. We're not there yet. We're far from some of our competitors. But again, to Vijay's point, so we're trying to develop the brand across all markets. You don't want to put all your eggs in the same basket, and you're cautious about that. So we're developing and trying to grow every single market at the same pace. Trying to catch up in China, yes, but not over-investing there, but continuing to mature those existing markets.
Okay. Now, smartwatches. Are we still talking about this? I mean, there was a period where it was considered an existential threat to the industry, much like the quartz crisis, or even the rise of the cell phone as a ubiquitous timekeeper. But here we are. Now, the Apple Watch is still the best-selling watch in the world by far, but I don't see that it's had a huge impact on the industry. Even still, we've seen some, storied brands have their own attempts at a smartwatch, notably Tag Heuer, Mont Blanc. You guys have any plans in this space?
No.
Thank you.
No, at all.
Okay.
At all, and to tell you the truth, obviously that has been a question, and then we decided not to go that route because it's a never-ending story, because we understand that those Apple Watch, for example, are what is the life cycle of those watches? It's like 6 months, 8 months, and now we have the new operating system. And so we're a watchmaker. We're not computer scientists. So this is a direction that we decided not to take. Continue to do what we do best, and but I think it helped all the industry to stay on their toes again, and continuing to push us to innovate and to offer something different, and or how do you try to continue to differentiate yourself with a watch brand that is 190 years old, and when we are in the digital era. So that's the challenge for us, but definitely we said no, we're not going to go in there.
But I mean, I think also too, it put watches on wrists of people that may not have worn watches. So as much as it's you may see it or it's perceived sometimes as a threat, it's putting something on the wrist of someone which was lacking for a bit of time, right? But I think the perception of mechanical watches, what we do and how we do it, I think will always be around. People always want that, or will always gravitate towards that, how things work mechanically. Everything's electronic net these days, and you see sort of this little rebellion against it almost. And I would say, mechanical watches are sort of fall into that, much like, record players and things like. You see all that stuff just coming in because it's coming back to just understanding things at an analog level, or something that's just at its basic level.
Is the Apple Watch really a watch? I mean, you can go down that road too, right? Because it's more of a computer on your wrist. It's not mechanical. The electronics will become obsolete very quickly. And so I don't like the term watch when it's used for the Apple Watch or these other connected timepieces.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, we don't write a lot about smartwatches on the site. Like we announced the Apple Watch 5 or whatever recently came out, but we don't do deep dives on them. We don't really do reviews, and to be honest, it's not the kind of thing that readers really ask for. Like within our community, I think to your point about it, maybe is it a watch, is it not? Within our niche of the watch world, I don't think they are clamoring for us to write our thoughts about it. So.
Fair enough. Out of curiosity, how many people in here actually have a smartwatch of some sort? How many of them are actually wearing them right now? Okay, good. Oh, thank you.
Security?
Yeah, we could escort them out. But it's an interesting... No, it's an interesting phenomenon, and I've seen a lot of people and a lot of RedBar members too will have their, vintage Rolex on one wrist and then an Apple Watch or other connected watch on the other wrist, and so they kind of complement each other. But it's something that seemed to vex the industry for a while, and I feel like it was sort of a tempest in a teapot there. But speaking of the industry, speaking of something big that's been happening, the trade shows have been under fire a little bit from the brands and even from the attendees. We've seen several brands notably leave the Basel World Show, and now this year they're actually moving the shows closer together. So maybe individually you guys can comment a little bit on the changes we're seeing in this side of the industry, and what do you think the reasons are for it, and where do we think that's going?
Pass. So,
No,
we work this out.
You can't pass. You're here.
For
So-
a friend.
I think that the shows they are today, they exist today. I think it's kind of over, and they need to evolve because the market has evolved. The way we talk about that, we were mentioning that no matter what, on day one or even day one, we have already online on all your networks and the product available for the end consumer to see. So so this show that were trade show, not open to public, only for our retailers, etc. Those brands who left SIHH, for example, they are controlling their distribution. It's an internal distribution, so they don't need to attend the show to get retailers coming
Real quick, but it was AP and Richard Mille, just
Yes. So that was like, wow, they are leaving SIHH because, and so the same way Swatch left. But no, that was not the same reason. The reason is that they internalize entirely their distribution, and they don't need a show to get there to spend millions on producing that show for their own people. So they will do it another way. I think that with the Richemont Group, obviously at SIHH, we evolved. SIHH has been created, initiated by the Richemont Group to get out of the Basel world because we felt that the quality of the show was not there. We could not sell luxury watches, and asking our retailers to step up their game to sell and promote our watches if we were showing them that we were selling watches in between a sausage truck and I'm caricaturizing, but this is almost that. There was not the capability for us to get everybody in Basel with hotel accommodation, everything. It was a nightmare. So we decided to go to Geneva, which is an international airport. There is much more, and we wanted to have a more cozy environment to show them what is luxury all about. And so because we wanted them to then replicate and say, hey, we want you to sell the watch the same way we are selling them to you. So that was the reason of SIHH. Open only for trade. Then, a couple of years ago, it started to change because we invited collectors and to come, thanks to you guys, and you brought also those sides. So brands were coming with their top VIP customer to show them in avant-première the product so they could order them on the show and get them delivered during the year. But so we already changed a little bit the format, and we're continuing to grow it. And today is the fact that what happened sort of pre-show or at the beginning of the show with our end customer, it's extremely important. It's in terms of sales, because we are selling at those events. We're selling much more than what the show cost. So then afterward, you have your trade show. So we really reinvented the format because we understood that those shows were becoming obsolete, and we needed to reinvent it. So that's the way we are reinventing them. I think getting finally close to a next with Basel is a good thing. We can ask our retailer to travel the world twice a year, etc. We're not in fashion. We have one fashion show it's one time a year. So I think make it reasonable. And I think at some point we're going to see certainly a show in Asia. SIHH, in my opinion, should be only for Europe, and we should have something, a sort of pendant to SIHH here in North America or in America for the Americas.
as someone who has been to SIHH and Basel when they were following each other and then when they were apart, I have to say that while you might be exhausted by the end of going through both of those shows, as a journalist, it just made a lot of sense because you could really put together everything that you saw at once, really get an idea of the kind of stories that you wanted to do, and you didn't have to go back and forth to Switzerland twice. And when Basel was first, that was very tiring, and then you get to SIHH and you're kind of like, oh, feel that luxury. And so I'm all for having them back to back.
I mean, I agree. I think it's, when you think about the concept of what a trade show is, I think there's two things. I think one, the consumer component definitively needs to come into, and that means you guys like opening it to the public to come in and see and do things like that, because that's the evolution that needs to happen. And I think you're starting to see that now come, you push for it, you try to make it happen, and you're starting to see it happen, which I think is a good thing. But when you think about a trade show in general and you think about it, you're trying to bring people together to one place to show them something in an efficient manner, right? So now when you have Basel and then you have SIHH, and then a brand pulls out of this one or that one and they want to do their own thing here, at the end of the day, the people attending these shows are the people that you're trying to reach, and you're making them go here, there. One trip turns into 8 trips, and it's just not efficient. So I think when you see this happening, coming together now, I think that's good. I think when you see the evolution of the consumer side of it, people coming, whether that's here in the U.S. or whether that's there, it's opening yourself up to the consumer side of it, I think is very, very important for the future of that, for the future of shows in general. I think it really, and even with the press, I think you see much more. It's become very, very even more press-centric than it's ever been. It's become much more instantaneous. Like that first day, like everybody wants to see what's happening because it's immediately out there. It's immediately launched. It's immediately there. So there's no, I'll see you on the third day. It's like I need to see the first day because I need to put it out there, in line with everybody else. So.
Yeah, I mean, Basel's been super important for us. It's, one of the, if not the busiest time of year on the website, and it gives us an opportunity to see all these watches all at once. And it's a shame, with Swatch pulling out, it's, those are core brands to our audience. Those are brands that we want to cover. Fortunately, we have in New York and we're able to see them, but there's something to having them there during that key time. I mean, I think sort of a less maybe discussed consequence of the show shrinking, it's unfortunate to have some of the bigger brands leaving, but also like one of our favorite things to do in Basel was just to kind of wander the far halls and discover these brands that you just don't get press releases from, or you don't get a chance to talk to, and that's not really something we can do anymore. They're not there. They're sort of tucked away in weird places, or they're just not coming at all. So for us, wandering the halls, separating an hour or two, on day 3 to just walk around and meet these esoteric small brands, like that's not something we're really doing anymore, which is too bad because you find some cool stuff that way. Yeah.
Fred, you talked about having different shows for different markets. And, the United States, we have Watch Time, which is coming up soon. So I hope people are considering attending that. And then, of course, you created your own show from the ground up. What challenges have you faced with that? And do you really think it's feasible to have a Basel-style sized show here in the U.S.? Yeah, I'm asking you.
Sure, yeah. So challenges, sure. I mean, when we first started doing it, I think there was some sort of, people needed to see it happen to believe that it was real. So I think doing that first show with, 12 or so brands really sort of proved the concept. And since then, we've grown to Chelsea Market. We have around 40 brands, and then we do it in San Francisco, and we're hoping to do a third show next year. It's the kind of thing where the sort of response from brands has just been, thankfully overwhelmingly positive. I see it as like super different from Basel, and I don't even know if I would compare it to it in the sense that it's really not an industry show at all. I mean, it's free, open to the public. It's just all about getting people in front of watches in a way that they just aren't usually, right? So we strongly encourage brands not to use glass cases. We encourage them to have watches out for people to see, especially with the smaller brands, like have the people who founded the brands be there to engage with the consumers. I think and we encourage brands to sell. We want brands to be there, and we want them to get a good return on their investment. So it's just such a different thing, and I totally understand that Basel was intended to be something very different, and I don't know that a show like Wind Up could replace that. But for us, we're just trying to present watches in a way that makes more sense to us. You know, when we were first getting into the watch industry, going to sort of frankly, just like more stuffy watch events, just it was never for us. We never felt comfortable, and if we didn't feel comfortable as kind of people in the industry, our friends and family who we wanted to get into watches, we thought would never get into it. So that's what Wind Up is all about. I mean, anybody can walk in there, from a novice to an expert, and find something cool and engage with somebody and have a good conversation. Yeah.
Great. Since Basel is the show that's open to the public, how many people here are actually considering attending this year? Anyone? Wow. Okay. And I'm assuming a couple of you will hopefully be going courtesy of Oris.
Remember.
So just to give you a little plug there. Now, I want to get to questions soon, and I hope that you have some for these guys. But first for Blake and Hyla, 3 must-have watches.
For myself personally.
However you want.
Well, I remain in love with the Vacheron Constantin 1972 mechanical piece, which has been around for a long time, and I still don't own one. And so for me, that would be one of my dream watches. I love the poetic complications that Van Cleef and Arpels pull out, because you just give this whole new sense of time and the beauty and the more esoteric, I guess, experience of time. And I just saw a watch yesterday from Urwerk, which I know you guys, some of you saw it as well, and it was relating time and space and distance and movement. And to me, that was it was mind-blowing and something I hadn't seen anything like that before.
Yeah, that was exceptional.
Yeah. So those are my 3.
So I'm going to have this is one of the questions you sent in advance, and I have a slightly different answer. So I would sort of list genres of watches or types. So I would buy something from an American maker. So there are some really amazing watchmakers in the U.S. doing various levels of manufacturing in the U.S., one of whom is in the front row, Ian Sean. And they do really great work, and I think it's a side of the watch world that people maybe don't get to experience a lot because there aren't a ton of them. And there are various price points, whether it's Sean or it's Weiss Watch or Vero or Vortic. Go get an American watch. People are doing amazing things here. Get a micro-brand watch. Get a watch from a really small manufacturer. People can do really amazing things in that price point. And again, I think if you're used to collecting at a slightly higher end, maybe you don't necessarily get to see the quality you can get there and the level of creativity. And then on the flip of that, I think we have a lot of readers who are strictly buying very affordable micro brands. Buy something a little bit nicer. Buy an Oris. Buy something that's maybe a little bit outside of the price point that you're typically buying, because I think you need to expose yourself to that higher level of manufacturing and see what it's all about. So that's what I would suggest.
Nice. Now, for you two, the only condition is that you can't name one of your own watches. All right, go.
Pass.
Get out.
That would be my first one, and that the one that I still need to have, part of my collection, would be a 15202, the Jumbo of AP. That's for me the ultimate luxury watch. For its design, for the craftsmanship and so on. I think it's like, and to be the first luxury sport watch from Gerald Genta, so that's like a piece of history. Then on the other side, I would say none of the Baume Mercier. Okay, I'm in love with my big pilot watch, IWC, and one that I would love to have as well. Now I'm going to find another brand. No, because then on the other side, what I love is like the GST perpetual calendar in titanium. Yep. That's one of the pieces that I missed once, and I regret.
Older IWC model and a gorgeous watch. All right, well, you've got your work cut out for you. All right, come on, VJ.
No, it's hard for me because if you
you can just name 3 Orises. Go for it.
No, I know. It's just it's not that. It's more like my watch to me. I'm very superstitious about my watch, So I wear my watch.
Really?
Yeah, I wear my watch, like my first Oris I've had. I've been through a lot with it, so I wear it a lot. So it's hard for me to I don't really go out and say I want this or I want that. It's more about the emotion of what I'm having. You know, this one obviously I've been wearing this all year because it's just something that obviously yes, it's an Oris, but it's something that I've personally vested in, personally project, like things that mean something to me, and that's why I look for it. I'm not out necessarily shopping but there's a lot of brands doing a lot of things. As Blake said, the IWCI is certainly a big pilot. I really, I like the look of that. The micro brands, like these guys are doing great things, and I think, I respect that when I think about watches and I think about what we go through as brands and I see what they go through, I have a lot of respect for that, a lot, so.
Okay, so kind of not answering the question, but thank you. No. So we're going to get to the Q&A portion here. There's obviously a lot of stuff that we didn't cover, so I'm going to ask you guys to pick up the slack there. So let's see. Adam is the arbiter here.
Hi, I'm Paul, and thankfully I'm a watchaholic. And if you're wondering, Helios C43 this morning.
Great, nice.
My question relates to marketing emphasis from the various companies. And do you see that there is a shift occurring from brand ambassadors, the likes of Clooney, Brady, and Pitt, to more influencers, the likes of Stevie Mac and Jeep 99 Dad and Bark and Jack? Or is this really just a matter of broadcasting versus microcasting?
I mean, from our perspective, as our brand, we've never done a lot of celebrity advertising. It's just not our thing. So like does it sell watches? It does sell watches. Like celebrity advertising, and this may not be the group to talk to about that because, I don't think this is the target market for that sort of thing when it comes to celebrities. But it does sell watches, but when you think about the approach of it, is someone going to buy a watch because someone, has it on, and I'm not, different people, what are you doing? You're adding to the cost of the watch. You're adding to the price of the watch by having that person. So if you're really true in what you're doing, it's hard to. So from a celebrity perspective, not something that we've done, in our marketing side. I mean, our biggest thing as always has always been awareness, right? It's brand awareness. So how do you get awareness? Recognizing that celebrity does bring a lot of awareness to brands, but it's a very fine line between how do you do that in a way that people get to know it, but they don't necessarily, it's not this guy or this guy's wearing it, or so it's, I think, but what's happened with just the influencer community, it's just all been very organic. It hasn't even been, it's not on purpose. It's just an organic thing that's happened because people like the product as they're, they're posting their pictures or whatever. It's just happening organically, and that's the beautiful thing about it. So that's where, we've not focused, but that's what's driven us, at least for the past few years. So.
I think it's it would be, in my opinion, it's certainly. I understand that celebrity is so crucial nowadays, and I think specifically in this market. And I learned that when I came to the market in 2005, and that how celebrity were driven the attention. So some brands needed to get to with those talents to be or sports athletes, etc., to represent, and saying this is my choice. Yes, it worked. I think it evolves because the consumer as well is extremely much more educated about watches today. They know more, and it's not an actor that will make, at least not for you guys, will not make you take a decision on purchasing. But now we see, I think, potentially a combination of both. Or if you use those talents, athletes, it's using them because they're wearing those watches already. And that has always been our approach here. But I worked for several brands, obviously IWC, and we started that phenomenon in the early 2000s. But we were only going after people that were wearing and buying our watches. And this is the only way where I feel it's organic, and that fit because, and even the end customer, they understand and they see, they know, and so we don't take them for a ride. At AP, it has been the same thing, building that golf community, and with those golfers who are wearing them, and this is how you talk to a certain community. So the influencers, there is I think the bridge, because now those actor, athletes, whatever, communicate on social media, and they become therefore influencer in this way. But for us at Baume and Mercier, for example, we don't have the capacity to have a Tom Brady or a Dwayne Johnson over with 100 millions plus, and I would love to. I think we would need to have a bigger watch for him, but we would love to have 100 millions viewing like our brand like that. It would be cool. But so we took another approach. We went through influencers, either in our watch community or in different various communities, and to talk to those local communities. So watch aficionados, but it could be also young talent in Hollywood that are gravitating around the crowd that we want to be as well seen, or sports guys that are. We were with until this year we had the Bryant's brother. So the tennis player, American pair, legendary ones. They are definitely not Federer or Nadal. We can't afford them. They are taken already, but they cannot afford them. But we were going with those gentlemen because they were embodying what the brand is all about. And it's like this, the fact that they are hard worker and they master their game, etc., etc. That's why we felt that it was embodying what we were representing. So we went through those type of ambassador or influencer that allowed us to get to that specific community and talk to them sort of like a closer way, if I may say.
Okay. Next question, and we're running out of time here, so and we have a lot of questions. So I love you guys. Great answers. Let's keep it. Shut up. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yes, hello. I was wondering in terms of, I want to touch back to the criticism of a brand kind of thing. So from a watch, from a journalism perspective and a brand perspective, I know about that in big time mixed reaction about the AP code 1159. So I was wondering, as a brand, how did you view that backlash? You know, and did it make you think, well, if we are going to do something new with ours, you know, what lessons did you take from AP? And for the journalists, you know, when you see that, how do you even write about that? You know, what's your sense of what's happening with all that backlash?
I mean, I think it's really looking at, it got really crucified. I mean, let's be honest. But, I mean, you think about it, but I think it's also, you try to think, you don't think about other brands when you necessarily launch something. It's more like, are we launching something, in our case, like, are you launching something that makes sense? Does this make sense with who you are? Is this in your, what you should be doing? We just launched our PPX, for example, right? It's something that there was some comments about it, but it's within who we are. You get that upper, you get some people that are not, you're not going to make everybody happy all the time, but it's like you think about those things. But I think it's important to stay true to your brand, and if you're launching something that's very true to your brand, then that's the best you can do. Like, if you're trying to do something that you're not, then that's certainly something that you're opening yourself up to that.
So I like the question, because I think that what would have been very interesting, I think, is to see if in 72 Instagram and everything was existing, if they would have said the same thing, if they would have crucified AP the same way when they launched Jumbo, which actually they did. The industry crucified them, telling them they would bump the wall, they are dead, they go for bankruptcy, game over. 40 years plus after, right. So today I think I feel like it's a little bit too much what happened to them on the criticism, and don't get me wrong, when we started talking about that, I'm not against the comments and everything, and I think it's interesting, and you don't want to have only beautiful article telling your story, right? You need that to progress. But this is where it's like the answer, or when something is posted, is all the comments from people that have certainly never made a watch, etc. It's not paying a tribute or respect to those watchmakers that worked tremendous years on developing that specific watch and the others, right? So I think like for AP, coming with this watch is really ballsy, and they could continue to surf on their Royal Oak offshore story, but should Do you think they should have continued to surf, or you need to think about like the next 100 years for the company and say, okay, what's next? And is it not when you are at the top that you need now to try you need to try something different? I think this is the approach that they took, and I think it was smart. You like it or not, but think, wow, I was shocked by the whole backlash they got about that. So I think it was a little bit unfair.
Either you guys comment? No?
Well, I was going to equate it to when Patek Philippe first introduced their pilot watch. There was a lot of controversy around that. Is it going away from the brand's DNA? Is it something that they really shouldn't be putting their hands on? Is it too derivative of other watches? But it was something that they had produced in the past. And I say, why not make a pilot watch, even if you're Patek Philippe? Like, who's to say that you should make a watch? And the same thing from what you were saying, who's to say they can't do it? And it will probably, over the years, as you were saying, come more into use, and people will get used to it after the shock.
I don't think anyone's going to get used to it.
We've
kidding.
got-
No.
Adam, we've
next
got
question.
we've got time for 2 real quick questions, and then we'll have to be done.
All right. So, but then I want you to scooch over there. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Kurt Brown from Michigan, my wife Jessica here. I'm kind of curious of your take on the gray market and whether you see it as a disruptor to your brand or to the industry as a whole. And if you do say yes to that, my counter would be, what's your take in comparison to that against a private seller selling it on the market for less than retail price?
I mean, the gray market exists and exists for every brand, as you all know. I mean, I think it truly is up to the brand how they control the gray market. I mean, I think it really is a brand thing. So whether it's how do you view it, how do you enforce it, how do you take care of it? Because quite honestly, in my position, the last thing I want to do is have a conversation about the gray market with a retail partner or somebody like that, because it doesn't do anyone any good, right? I think I truly think you need to be careful with it, but they don't always treat things the way they should be treated. And even a private seller, maybe they take better care, maybe they've had something and then they sell it, I mean, you can sell anything you want for a price, if you bought it, or, I don't think I think it's it's buying things from a reputable source as always. I think a private seller can certainly be that as well. I think the gray market, it's tough because some of them have, they've sold a lot of watches. It's not that they haven't, it's just, how do they treat you? What if something happens? What if something's wrong? Like, do you go back? Are they as good on the recovery service or something that happens? That's where you have to be careful, I think.
Gray market has existed, I think, for forever. Brands nurtured it. That's true. But I think there has been a real. I think for the last 2 to 4 years, there has been a huge effort from the industry saying that it's over. We're not racing at producing more and pushing product in the market. There is really an effort in producing what sells today, and a lot of brands have done tremendous effort in cleaning that market as well to make sure that it is not continuing. I had most of our discussion were about that with our retailers. Thank God it's not happening anymore the way that it used to happen. And what you find also online on the gray market is mostly really pieces that are no longer on catalogs. So there is no fight with the new watches in our retailer stores. But this is less and less. So are we going to stop that? Never, I don't think so. But I think a new phenomenon is the pre-owned business, who start really getting into the place, and certainly helping us as well to fight against gray market, because I think a lot of people are going now and have no problem in going and buying a pre-owned that could be at the more affordable price, and therefore I think I look at it as a good sign as well.
Okay, and a final question?
Adele Jones. What did you think about the fact that Basel and SIHH are now in the middle of the year, and the U.S. trade shows like Couture and JCK happen a month later? What do you think about the effect on the U.S. trade shows?
I think it won't affect it because no matter what, Basel or SIHH, you never receive the entire distribution coming to see you, and we will always need to go and see the local distributor that cannot come or there, so to sell them the watches. So it could be beneficial.
I agree because I think people that go to Basel and SHH, they go to Couture. They may go to Couture for different reasons, but they come to Couture. So I think there's, and then there's people that don't go to Basel or SHH that come to Couture. So I think it'll be around.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to the panelists. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. And we do have some food for you. So before you head out, we would ask you to go ahead and grab yourself a lunch basket there. And the itinerary has been printed out. If you have any questions, though, please see Kathleen, Adam, or myself. And again, thank you. And hydrate.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers.